Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to give it a couple of seconds and let everybody tune in. My name is Rafael Magaña. I'm the founder of Latino, Latina, Latinx Professionals. And today we have a special guest speaker, a dear friend of mine, an incredible leader, an incredible change maker who has just released an incredible leadership playbook. I'll love to have you introduce yourself, Ref, and give us a little bit of background of who you are today.
Yeah, thanks, Rafael. Thanks for having me. Heard a lot about your organization. I've been following you for a bit, and I know we've connected, recently. Super excited to be here, and I love that you have your goal of, I think, 1 million Latinas in how many years? 10 years you want to get there?
2026.
2026. Awesome. Phenomenal goal, and I'm aligned with that and doing everything I can to support you and to make sure we get there. And hopefully Latinos too, right? We want to make sure we get everybody there. But I'm the Refugio Atilano. I go by Ref as well. As Rafael just mentioned, just launched the Latino Leadership Playbook, which is basically it's a toolkit. I call it a resource, leadership resource for Latinos. It's almost like a Harvard Business Review for Latinos. So I try to stay away from the book title, but make it more like a real tangible tool that can help you drive your career. About me, I live in Chicago, born and raised, second generation Mexican. Grew up with, second generation Mexican, but first generation college student, professional, etc. Been in many different industries across many different corporations. And now with AbbVie, global world-class pharma company. And, my leadership journey started about 6-7 years ago, where I really zoomed in on focusing on my leadership capability. And before that, I had no idea what that meant, to be honest. Just real quick story. It was about 6-7 years ago, and because of that lack of mentorship guidance, I was frustrated. Everybody around me was getting promoted, and I went to a Latina, I remember at the time, and senior leader, and she's like, you need to work on your executive presence and get involved with the company and add impact across the company, and things like that, being politically savvy. And first of all, I'm like, what's that? And so net is, it opened my eyes. It was like somebody put a pair of glasses on me for the first time, and so I saw this new world of leadership, and I've practiced, I've studied, and now I've mastered a lot of those things. And so now here at AbbVie, and all these ideas are my own. So I just got to put that caveat in that AbbVie's. But here where I am today as a senior leader at AbbVie, I lead global teams. I lead a global ERG. There's 2,500 members. We have 13 chapters around the world. But I focus on driving business. I focus on mentoring, coaching. I like to say I develop Latino leaders, Latina leaders. That is my passion, plain and simple. I've been through many various Latino-centric coaching, so I know the cultural scripts. I was born and raised Latino, so I've lived them. And I know how to overcome them as well, as far as the barriers. And also I know how to use them to drive them to my benefit in the workplace. I know how to use them as superpowers. So I know I just said a lot, but there's a lot of greatness in there that I'm very passionate about, and I'll put in a playbook and harness that for everybody's benefit.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that introduction, Ref. So one of the questions we have for you is, what inspired you to delve into this topic and write this book?
Yeah, it was actually a bunch of things. It was funny because, once I joined AbbVie, I got involved with the ERG, right? And I just kind of wanted to get a feel for it. And then I found myself in a leadership position. And so I started coaching and mentoring Latinas and Latinos. And what's interesting is everything that I was hearing, my manager doesn't like me. I'm not getting promoted. My accent's too thick. I don't know how to advocate for myself. I'm not getting sponsors. All the same, like everybody's repeating the same things. I'm like, so I started writing stuff down. I just handed people, here, read this and then let's talk. Read this and let's talk. Basically, I wrote down my playbook, if you will, how to get sponsors, for instance. It's really strategically going after the influencers in the organization, showcasing yourself in front of them, building that relationship organically is an example. But bottom line is I find myself repeating myself. And then once, I mentored and they took the insights, I started seeing movement. I started seeing my mentees getting promoted. I'm like, holy crap. I was like, this thing really works, And so it was just a phenomenal to see. And so I asked the question to myself. I was like, because I'm seeing such good results with those I mentor, I'm wondering if there's a book like this, before, I want to put in a book, but before I do that, is it worth putting in the book? I know Dr. Rodriguez has some great books out there, and Frank Carbajal, some other great books, but I wanted really a how-to, not inspirational, just what do I need to do? Give me the do's and don'ts, period. And so the back half of last year, I think I talked to every Latino on earth, it seemed like, just kind of doing my own personal research, and I read a ton of books. But there was nothing out there that hit the mark for me, right? Just something I could just give you and say, you read this, you'll be gold or golden. And so that's what inspired me. And the other thing too is a couple of other things really quickly is, I listen to a lot of podcasts, so Rafael, all these different podcasts. And I hear the same thing. It was, again, the same things. We need to advocate for ourselves. We need sponsors. It's all a bunch of what we need to do, but we never talk about how to do it. And so that's also what inspired me is not just talk about it, but do something about it. And so I'm very action oriented. I'm very goal oriented. And so I made sure that this playbook, I didn't just put a book out there. I put together a workbook as well, a free workbook, by the way. Templates are on my website. Just download them, and it goes along with the workbook. But it brings everything to life. It never leaves your side. It's part of who you are. It's part of your development. And so it's not like you go to a talk at a conference, you go home and you forget about it. That's not how this works. In this case, it's very actionable. So I wanted to make sure I solved for that. And then finally, I was on actually Lean In Latinas the other day. And what did it for me, I was at the Hispanic Leadership Summit last December with Claudia's organization. And they talked about the pay gap. By the way, I didn't know that Latinos make 54 cents compared to the white male for the same work. And to me, that just blew me out of the water. And I'm like, yeah, we need to do something about this, And again, I'm very action oriented. I'm like, I need to come up with something, a strategy, a how-to on this. And so net, I wrote a book or a toolkit. And the way I always describe it is I literally wrote it as if I was going to give it to my 20-year-old self. Here is everything you need to know as you navigate your career, and keep this book with you for your entire career. And I didn't want this playbook just to be about me, right? My thoughts, my insights, which I strongly believe in, and I'm very confident in. But I also wanted to give the Latina perspective, because I don't have that. And so I've collaborated with the strongest and most influential Latinas across the world, and I got their insights to share with you. From a Latino perspective, or other senior leader perspective, including Rafael right here, who talked about how to be a strong communicator, which is extremely important in the workplace, right? And so I got all these Latino perspectives, and then other senior leader perspectives, non-Latino. So I'm talking like CEOs, entrepreneur leaders, VPs. I wanted you to have the best insights, the most actionable insights, so you can be extremely effective in the workplace. And the best way I can describe these insights, it's almost like street smarts for corporate environments. It's the stuff that nobody teaches you. Again, the political savviness, the executive presence, the how to get to sponsors and use sponsors to drive your career. It's those things that are going to get you ahead and get you ahead quickly. So I made sure I captured those.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for not only inviting me to, publish an article in your book, but walk me through a little bit. Was there any moments during the writing and creative process as a writer myself that made you reconsider or refine your perspective?
Yeah, it was interesting. When I was first going to write the book, it was going to be very, my style. I'm very direct, and I like to cut to the chase. I have a red personality. So if you look at your insights model, I'm all red. And initially, I was going to write a book of just do's and don'ts, just Cliff Notes version. Do this and don't do that. But after talking to people, I think it was Dr. Maria Espanola. I remember I met her at HLS, and I believe she's in Cincinnati. She's the CEO of a health organization. She's like, if you want me to lean on this, you got to do some research. You got to back up what you're saying, right? It's not just the world according to you. You got to actually have research to back up what you're doing. I'm like, okay. So I actually had to rethink how I was going to do the book. And so anyhow, I started doing research, right? And I made sure everything I said was backed up, right? And then again, I'm a big do's and don'ts guys. And if you notice in each chapter at the end of it, it's all do's and don'ts. And people like that, to be honest. So, but then I got from others, hey, Latinos like stories. And I'm like, okay. So then I had to go back and put my stories in there. And then that's what got me going on the collaborations. Because I was like, I only have so many stories. I need more stories. And so I started reaching out to everybody. And just when I met with them, did an intro, and I talked to them about the vision, people were so excited about to share, number one, their stories, and not the inspirational stories, but situational stories, right? Hey, I went through this and I learned this, and here's the 3 key takeaways. So if you go to any story within the book, at the end of each one, there's 3 key takeaways. So in essence, if you really wanted to zoom through it, go to the end of each story and you'll get the nuggets that you need to drive forward. So yeah, especially in the first 3 or 4 months, Rafael, my writing style shifted and the way I approached the book shifted. I thought I was going to be done in 5 or 6 months. It ended up being 10 because of that shift. But in the end, it's a great product.
Absolutely. It's a great book. If you haven't had the chance, make sure you visit Amazon. It's a great place. You can go ahead and place your order and get that book delivered to your mail very quickly. Can you walk us through, was there a part in the book that you would consider the most transformative to you personally?
Yeah, I'd say two pieces of the book, 2 chapters. One is how to advocate for yourself, and then the other one is how to lead with an impact mindset. And it's interesting. I do some talks to corporations, and those are the two topics I cover. By far, those things will change everything for you. If nothing else, read those 2. So, for instance, how to advocate for yourself. As Latinos, we are very respectful, right? We're family oriented. And we don't like to, we don't call the spotlight to ourselves. We're just not raised that way. It's not in our DNA. Collectively, some of us can do that. And so, so how to advocate for yourself. So I go very deep actually in that one. And I think it's like the 2nd or 3rd chapter. And I talk about, what I just spoke about the cultural barrier that we have there. But in the workplace, you need to advocate for yourself. And so what does that even mean? People think it's out there bragging. That's probably like 5 to 10% of it. Advocating for yourself is showing who you are and sharing who you are. But the show is going to be the key. So what does that mean? Showing is leading with conviction. It's showing that you know what the business priorities are and then driving towards those business priorities. It's having a great image, right? It's being able to understand how what your work you do ties to the business and being able to communicate and articulate that way. It's being able to raise your hand and take a leadership role when there's an issue or if there's an opportunity. You're the first to raise your hand. Those are the things that stick out to senior leaders. They want to see the go-getters. They want to see the ones who are able to lead and teams follow. They want to see the ones who are going to make an impact for the organization and really drive new ideas to drive business for them and to drive results for them. That's showcasing yourself. That's advocating for yourself. So it's not about what you say. It's about what you do. And people, the more you show what you do and you lead with that natural Latino passion and conviction and team collaboration, those are our superpowers. You could do it all day, every day, and you will get noticed for that. The second piece is around leading with impact. I spoke to Rafael, Marissa Solis very well. She said, one of the worst things you can do, I don't know the way she said, but just the way I paraphrased, one of the worst things you can do is be defined by your role. So for instance, if you're a marketer, don't just be a marketer. If you're an accountant, don't just be an accountant. That's table stakes. You better be doing it. You better be doing it well. What sets leaders apart is adding value and impact across the organization and even outside the organization in different ways. Being a role model, getting involved with the ERGs, talking to other senior leaders in the business and understanding what's important to them, what their strategies are, and how can you lean in and even volunteer to help advance those strategies. Even with your mentors and sponsors, as you get them, and there's a chapter on how to get sponsors and drive that. So please, that's another game changer. But once you get that, those are mutually beneficial relationships. It's not about what you can get out of it. That's part of it. But it's also how can you help them drive their business forward? What are the pet projects that they have or the pain points that they have that you can help accelerate for them? Because once you start doing that, now you have a whole nother, your reputation, your leadership brand is at a whole nother level. You're adding impact for senior leaders across the organization in different ways. And those are the things that develop your leadership brand. Those are the things that help you make an impact for your organization. And that's how you create an army of advocates.
Wonderful. Thank you for that answer. How do you see the current landscape evolving in terms of representation and impact?
Yeah. So, until we do something different as Latinos collectively, nothing is going to change, right? And so that's why this book is extremely important. This toolkit is extremely important. We could talk about all these things all we want, but until we actually take action. So for instance, taking action equals, in this case, get your toolkit, go through it, and you have to read the whole thing, zoom in where you need to develop or where you want to develop. But then, I was talking to somebody earlier today. Think about this. I'm a big NFL guy, National Football League guy, and the playbook is essentially like a playbook even for a sports team, right? You have a playbook, but the playbook is useless unless you practice the plays, unless you execute. And you're going to fail sometimes, but unless you practice and master the plays, and then once game time starts, you actually execute and you score, touchdowns. That's when it comes to life. And it's the same thing here. The playbook, again, is just guidance. But until you take that, practice it, apply it, and deliver results for your career, your organization, that's when it comes to life. And that's when you start to see change. This playbook are the plays that are going to get you touchdowns. And so if you apply yourself, and hopefully all Latinas, we apply ourselves, that's going to change the game. So whether it be this playbook or you find something similar to it out there, I don't think there is comprehensive, but if you can find a Latino-centric training, I know Dr. Rodriguez, Angel Gomez have a great training for instance. Do those things, but whatever it takes, develop yourself, especially from a Latino perspective, because we got to overcome those cultural barriers. So that's step one, and all the leadership pieces are step two. But again, we do all these things, it'll help change the narrative for us.
Great. Thank you for that, Ref. Is there one particular core message or sentiment you hope readers internalize? And what would that be?
Impact. That's, deliver impact in everything you do. Identify the impact you want to make. And so that can be different things. For instance, if you're in your business, whatever company you're in, identify the strategic goals and how you're going to impact those goals from wherever you are in the organization, right? And always talk in terms of those goals. When you start doing that, leaders will look at you different. For your career, impact your career. And so what does that mean? It's everything I actually just described. It's being strategic, knowing the options where you want to take your career, leveraging, and don't just do it in a silo. Talk to your manager, talk to your mentors, talk to your sponsors, peers. Make it real, right? But put the work in, and show strategically where you want to go and then how you want to get there and how others can help you get there. And then also how you can help others. So you want to impact yourself as well as impact others. And then I always go back to creating this army of advocates. Extremely important, because once you create these advocates, mentors, and sponsors, you're going to have people fighting for you at the decision-making table. They're going to be fighting for your bonuses, for your promotions, for special assignments. All that will start to come if you do this thing right. And so the book has positioned you to be an impact player in the workplace. I speak in terms of impact all the time. That's exactly what's going to happen. So apply yourself. Reach out to me at any time. I'm here for any questions via LinkedIn. I will always support you, help you in any way I can. And as well as my network is your network. So please use me, take full advantage, optimize your career.
Wonderful. I know you said, Ref, that you can read either a chapter. We hope everybody tuning in will read the book from cover to cover because it's excellent. Are you already, you and I had multiple conversations about the future of our community. Are you already envisioning a subsequent project from this?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, and just to go through the numbers really quickly, as Latinos, we're very young as far as our community. I believe 19 was the mode age I saw from one of Claudia's studies. And I think the mode age for non-Latinos is like in the late 50s. So there's a big difference. Bottom line is Latinos were coming. We have numbers, right? But I want those numbers to be quality numbers, to be leadership numbers. And so one of the thoughts I had is, definitely out of the gate, Latino leadership playbook. Let's get all the early career, all the professionals kind of level set, right? Let's get it organized and let's get this train going in the right direction. That's number one. Priority two for me is to begin going after college students, so our HSIs and wherever Latinos are, and possibly even high school. But teaching them the concepts of the importance of being a strong communicator, the importance of having a great network to drive your career. All the professional aspects don't automatically apply to them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pare it down to make sure that it's consumable, that it's packaged in a way that hits the mark with our college students, and it really tees them up to be workplace ready and leadership ready. Because once they hit that door, it has to be game on. So I want to make sure that they're ready to compete as soon as they hit that door. They can already compete with the Latin Latinos for those great positions and those great opportunities.
Wonderful answer. And then pretty much kind of summing up my final question, is there a specific action or support you like for our readers to take as a community, either to amplify the book, amplify your message, or even be an ambassador or stakeholder within their own companies?
Yeah, and so the way I leave it is, and I have this in the book as well, is I close it out with unity, action, and accountability. So with unity, Rafael, we talked about this a little bit, is we all need to come together. It can't just be Latinas, it can't just be Latinos, or we have to, or any nationality in between, right? It's Latinos, we're Latinas, we're all one, and we have to be each other's biggest cheerleaders. So that's 100% needs to happen. Just really quickly, as an ERG leader, before I was an ERG leader, I really didn't have that visibility to all the nationalities. So this has helped me just embrace it all. And now it's just, we're Latinos. That's it. That's the way I operate. And the more, the merrier, right? And hopefully we operate that way. But then action, like I said, it's cool to have the playbook, but unless you bring it to life, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter, right? So a couple things with action. Number one, drive your own personal development individually. Go through the book or go through sections of the book that apply to you, and then drive it hard. Talk to your manager, sponsor, mentor. And I have used the workbooks, right? Use the workbook templates on my website, refugioatilano.com. Download them, but bring that to work and show that you're actively, not show, but actively drive your career. The other thing I want others to do is create these. I don't like using book clubs, but I like using leadership clubs, the Latino Leadership Club. If you're in a company, get with 4 or 5 or more, right? But go deep on a couple of chapters every other month. But talk about the wins, losses, opportunities, and what you've learned, right? That's how you make this stuff real. You start changing the conversation. And then finally, one of the things, I want to start thinking about too is holding companies accountable. We're going to do our part, right? We're going to lean into this thing and we're going to drive our careers hard. But companies also have to come to the table. And so if that's investing, for instance, investing in these books, right? And say, hey, you know what? I'm going to equip my ERG with the Latino Leadership Playbook. Pressure companies, I shouldn't say pressure, but maybe ask pressure to invest in Latino leadership, right? This is an easy win for them. They can put some money on this, and Latinos can get level set and start driving their careers in a different way than like never before. And then finally, accountability. One of the things I'll ask, whenever I'm around others is, where are you at in your book? I want to know exactly what you're doing or other, right? Maybe you're doing another training, but where are you at in your development? That's the first question I ask every Latino that I speak to. So my ask is amplify, hold each other accountable, drive your career. But the last piece to it, around amplification, like I said, we're young. So make sure you're sharing these same messages with your cousins, your brothers, sisters, friends, whoever's coming across. Be sure to keep amplifying and be an ambassador for us.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that summary. Ref, any questions? From my end, thank you so much for giving us just a great summary. I want to recommend the book to everybody. It's an incredible read from start to finish. As an avid reader myself, I tend to read about 150 books a year. I think this is certainly a book that needs to be in your top 10 to read for the end of 2023, 2024. Again, you've done an amazing job, compiled some of the nation's leading Latino and Latinas in your book, and all of us here commend you on that just phenomenal work that went behind in publishing such a fantastic workbook.
Awesome. Thanks, Rafael. I appreciate everything. And just one question before we do break. What inspired you to get involved with this project?
Yeah, absolutely. You reached out. I think, giving our audience a little bit just feedback, you did a fantastic job reaching out. So for me, I always say that a great leader is a great speaker and a great writer. And so for me, like you, I've been writing for 6 years. I have about 380 articles. I'm right now finishing about 90% done with 4 books, releasing them in subsequence of 2 years in 2024, 2026, 2028, and 2030. The first one will be about covers and resumes. Second will be about management. The third one will be about leadership. And then the additional last book is going to be on the creation of the 3 organizations, right? Why we needed Latino, Latina, Latinx professionals. I think there's a book to be told there. And so to your point, I wrote these articles really to a younger me, modeled after Harvard Business Review. I just love the structural way that they deliver information. And so when you reached out, I think your ask was, Rafael, I need a leader to talk about communication and leadership. And I absolutely agreed to it. And fast forward, we were able to put something really quickly, sent it over 2 draft versions for you, and the rest is history.
That's right. And thank you for that. And just to hit on communication, it's interesting. I've spoken to, I don't know, hundreds of executives during this journey, and being a strong communicator, storyteller, having good body language and good verbal communications by far was the number one skill set that executives look for senior level roles. So that's the first chapter when it comes to leadership skills. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. You did a fantastic job. I think I hope people realize just the value of this book, workbook that you've put together, this toolkit. I think for me, reading a lot of the articles and resonating with a lot of the leaders, a lot of the way you work up the corporate ladder. I always say talent gets you to the top, but it's relationships that keep you there, right? In terms of corporate transitions, corporate challenges, downsizing and surviving that. I think there's so many kernels and just important information that everybody can gather at different ages and different stages of your work career. And so I think what I love about your book, it just isn't so much for a lot of the books that are out there for senior executives. Mm-hmm. I think the book is phenomenal, even if you're entry, mid-level executive. It really it's a put book together of kind of tried and true, what works, what doesn't work. And then on top of that, you did a fantastic job of adding quotes. I think John Maxwell loved how you included some fantastic, phenomenal leaders and quotes in there all throughout the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last piece, I know we're kind of going back and forth, but the other thing you just mentioned, companies, things change in business, right? And what this book does is it future proofs you against business changes. If you're a strong leader, if you're a strong communicator, you're always going to interview well. Think about that, because you're a good storyteller and you're able to get good examples and tell in a compelling way. But it future proofs your career, right? It sets you up nicely. So whether, because company in your career is always going to change, and it'll make you change ready. It really sets you up nicely to have an exceptional career. And regardless of what happens and where you go, you'll be positioned nicely. So I just want to call that out.
Wonderful. Well, we're coming up to time. Refugio, I just want to thank you so much for your time, for your friendship, your leadership. You're an incredible leader, and just can't wait to work on future projects with you. Again, I want to remind all of our viewers, please visit Amazon, visit Refugio's website. Refugio, can you share with us your social media handles and website anything you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, I focus on LinkedIn, so Refugio Atilano. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on public, and please message me. Website is refugioatilano.com. And if you are looking for bulk orders for your company or for your school, reach out to me. I'll give you a good discount, and I'll make sure you get a good bulk order shipment, and take care of you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody. And we have a great giveaway for all of you who stood all the way to the end. Thank you very much for watching. We have a fantastic giveaway. We're going to give a couple of books signed by Refugio. We're both, Refugio and I, are going to dive through the questions and provide some answers in the chat box. And the best question will be nominated for a book. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Refugio, again, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on the fantastic book and toolkit that you've put together.
Awesome. Thanks, Rafael. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.